Welcome to episode 1411 of the Sleeper in the Bus. I'm Justin Mason, joined as always on Sunday by Jason Collette. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I am home, so no more podcasting from a truck. I am home. 2 of the last 3 have been out and remote, but I am home, man, and happy to be here.
It's glad to have you back on the home turf. Where you understand the dimensions of the studio, and but it's always good to see your face. Joining us as well is a familiar face that we love. It's Eric Samulski of Rotoworld. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. This is the first one of the year, I think, for me. I'm happy. I'm happy. It's we stopped our podcast, so it's nice to just be here talking baseball.
Yeah, no, I kind of miss hearing you. Well, I mean, I get to hear you on the Pitcherless podcast,
yes.
Right? Like, so
yes.
It's not like I don't get to hear you. I just don't get to hear you as much.
That you're the only person in the world who says that. But I'm happy to hear
You're
it.
You're married. Come on, like you have to have. Well, no, she probably.
Yes, that's what she says.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear you way too much.
Yeah, that's fair. So, for those who don't know who you are, I can't imagine that they don't. But remind people where you reach the social media and talk about what you do in the industry.
So I am on Twitter at Samski NYC. I write, I do baseball stuff, well, football too, but whatever. I do baseball stuff for Rotoworld, NBC Sports. So you can find weekly columns from me. Every Wednesday, I do a starting pitcher news column where I look into some trending starting pitchers and try to see if there's a reason behind the strong performance, whether it's pitch mix or new pitch or arm angles, things like that. Every Sunday I do a waiver wire column that has already come out right now. If you're watching this live on YouTube, over on NBC Sports, if you're listening to it, just know it comes out probably around 10:30 every Sunday. Mondays I record the On the Corner podcast with Nick Pollock over on the Pitcher List channel, so make sure you check that out. And then Mondays at noon Eastern time, James Shiano, who was a guest here a couple weeks ago, he and I do the Rotoworld fantasy baseball Q&A, which we put up on YouTube. So that's Monday at noon, help you set your lineups, ask any questions during the week, stuff like that. We get that going from noon to 1 p.m. And you can find, again, that everything I do, I will tweet out Samski NYC over there. And I'm on Blue Sky too, if you're on Blue Sky. So follow me over there.
There you go. You can also follow Jason on Blue Sky at Jason Collette. Follow me on every social media platform, Justin Mason FWFB. We have a ton of FAAB to cover. It is not as big of a FAAB-a-palooza weekend as maybe last weekend was, but pretty close. Actually, we got some pretty interesting names that are going to be joining our rundown today. But first, we have some news, and it's never good news. It's always bad news. Let's start with the big one, which is Jazz Chisholm goes to the IL with an oblique injury, and it is a severe oblique injury. So we're not talking about the typical 4 to 6 weeks that I mentioned on Friday with Paul towards the end of the episode when that news broke. We're talking probably close to 2 months. Eric, where are you at on Chisholm? Are you holding him in every format?
I think I'm holding him in every format unless I'm really strapped. The power and speed is still there. We've seen that from him. We saw a great season from him in Yankee Stadium last year. I recorded a video on this over on NBC Sports, and I just was pointing out that the fly ball rate is 20% higher than his career average. The batting average is obviously really poor right now. I think an approach change is probably warranted for Jazz Chisholm right now, to not try to yank everything out of the park. I know it's really enticing, and obviously it's nice for fantasy purposes if he's going to go 30-30. But with a 170 something batting average that's not useful for us. Maybe a little reset could be nice for him to come back and try to kind of dial back in the launch, the fly ball happy approach. But it's rare that you're going to find somebody who full season pace is a legit 30-30 threat on the waiver wire. And so I'm really trying to hold on to him wherever I can. I'm expecting him to be out at least a month. I know he says he's going to beat the timeline, but it's Jazz Chisholm, man. You've missed over a month every season of your career, but last year, I'm expecting at least a month. And if I need to cut bait in a couple weeks because I get in a real bad situation, so be it. But I think you're going to kick yourself if you cut him.
They're saying 4 to 6 weeks right now, which is the typical timetable for just a regular oblique injury, not a high grade one. So I'd expect he's out 2 months. I know he'll try to beat that timetable, but that's not usually a good thing with these. These are typically the type of injuries that get, re-aggravated very, very easily. Jason, you're kind of our injury guru guy because you're very, very cautious with these things. Where are you at on Chisholm?
At least I stopped doing self-research.
Yeah.
In a AL only league, first place, I have him. He's on the bench, and I traded for Brooks Lee last night to put in. So that's the kind of swap. So hopefully batting average at least will help. But like Eric said, all the other skills are too enticing to drop. He's saying he wants to come back in a month. It's always 2 weeks later than that. And you look at all the history he has had with injuries over the case. I would put a return date on him closer to Father's Day, which is June 15th than June 1st. Mm-hmm. So if he's back that scoring period after, and I don't want to activate him right away. So if he's back on June 16th, cool. But that he should take his time because as Josh Lowe has taught us and a few other players, those obliques can easily flare up again if you try to rush back too quickly. So Father's Day.
Yeah, I would be much more inclined to say All-Star break. Especially, if we're talking about a high grade one, so you're closer to the 6 to 8 weeks. Why not just wait till after the All-Star break? Make sure the guy is completely healthy. Mm-hmm. So I would say if you can hold on to him, you absolutely should. There's so much upside, but this is one of the reasons why I wouldn't draft Chisholm as high as he was going with his injury history.
So we've given y'all a window of Father's Day to All-Star break. But don't buy this. Oh, I'll be back in a month. Not on a high grade. No way. Not on a high grade oblique strain. Just no.
We should also note the other side of it. Like if you're in a 15-team league, like Jorbit Vivas I think really is worth picking up. I know we don't have him on our rundown later because also what are the Yankees going to do? I mean, he started the first 2 games. He does not appear to be in the starting lineup today on Sunday, but like, if you want all the sexy Justin Mason stats for Jorbit Vivas, it's a guy who has raised his zone swing percentage a bunch at AAA this year. His zone contact rate and his contact rate jumped, swinging strike rate down to 5%. In AAA this year, he's walked 15 times and struck out 8. That's the correct. I didn't invert that. That is accurate. He's stolen at least 20 bases in each of the last 2 seasons. So, like, is he going to hit 319 in the major league level? No, but if that approach sticks, could this be a guy who hits 270 and has 20 stolen base power hitting in a really good lineup? Like, that's interesting enough if you're in a 15-team league.
Yeah, he's going to be batting at the bottom of the lineup, but the bottom of the Yankees lineup is much better than the bottom of a lot of other lineups, better than the middle of other lineups. So, I don't mind that in 15-team leagues. He's an accumulator type, right? He can get on base and he doesn't strike out. And I think he can play a competent enough defense that's not going to cost him any as much time. So, I like that call down quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Also lefty. So like, what if he runs into a few homers that he shouldn't at Yankee Stadium? You're not getting him for that, but it's possible.
That happens.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's shocking.
That should have been born a lefty.
It doesn't happen for Tampa Bay and Steinbrenner Field, but it happens everywhere else.
Well, the winds blow in, Jason. The winds blow in.
So. It has been that offense. Oh, don't get me started. All right, let's go.
All right, next guy on the rundown. Corbin Burnes is going to miss some time with shoulder fatigue. I say miss some time because right now they're talking about starts. They're not talking about IL stint. But this feels like it's going to be an IL stint. Where are you at on Corbin Burnes, Jason?
So what's going on in Arizona? We have Justin Martinez and Corbin Burnes going down with shoulder fatigue. What exactly are these guys doing in between appearances or whatnot? In all seriousness, I kind of asked that question because that's just weird for 2 guys that had that issue. This goes back. Remember, Corbin Burnes has worked a lot. The body of work that he had coming into this season was extremely high, the volume. And it kind of reminded me, it was one of the reasons I was fading Burnes in leagues, just because it kind of reminded me of a Corey Kluber-like workload. but Corey Kluber fell off the cliff. I wasn't expecting that from Burnes, but I was one of the reasons why I was suggesting fading him, just because of the extreme workload and some of the signs, the cracks that we saw towards the back half of last season. His outings this year have been up and down. There have been times where he's looked great. There's been times where he's been not so great. So I'm just a little concerned about what's going on there with Arizona. We're going to talk more about their bullpen situation later, because they're going through a stretch right now, and it's not a good stretch. This team's underperforming, and losing these types of guys is concerning. And the only way to shoulder fatigue, the only way to get better is to not use it. And so I just put them on the IL. Don't mess around with this. We're going to kind of like what the Royals are doing with Reagans. They just skipped his last start, but didn't put him on the IL. I would love for Noah Cameron to make another start, see if he can throw another no-hitter. Yeah.
He'll be up sooner rather than later for good, I think.
4 shares of Noah Cameron. Let's go. Hurry up. I've had him all winter.
Eric, where are you at on Burnes right now?
Yeah, I'm with Jason. I mean, obviously the strikeout rate was way down already. There was enough to be concerned about, not where you were like, oh, I'm going to cut Corbin Burnes, a healthy Corbin Burnes. But you were just like, something isn't right. This isn't the same dude. Now there's the shoulder fatigue aspect of it. I know Jason in the offseason talked a lot about the amount of innings that Burnes has thrown over the years. I'm concerned enough where I just think when you have that much invested in a pitcher, you're going to err on the side of caution, especially this early in the season. And so an IL stint would not surprise me, even if MRI comes back clean, everything's fine. It's like, okay, why don't we just shut him down for a couple weeks? Why don't we just rest, let him figure it out? And then that should make Ryan Nelson interesting again. We talked about Ryan Nelson was squeezed out of that rotation, and I just encourage you to look beyond the stat lines. Ryan Nelson, his overall ERA is not great. Ryan Nelson has had 2 bad appearances this year. They have both come against the Cubs. They've both come against the Cubs, who we know are a very good offense, one of which was the first appearance of the year. But in 2 1/3 innings against the Cubs this year, Ryan Nelson has allowed 9 runs on 10 hits in 2 1/3 innings. He has allowed 2 runs the whole rest of the season. That's it. So he gets the Mets on Monday, who are not the Cubs. And so maybe that's a team that you could run Ryan Nelson out against. And I'm hurting in enough deep, 15-team leagues where I'm going to pick up Ryan, or try to pick up Ryan Nelson this week, because even if it's 3 starts in the rotation, if he pitches well enough, he might stay in the rotation. We don't really know. And I'm not super concerned about 2 bad outings against the Cubs.
I think the hard part for Ryan Nelson right now, because I agree with you, he's been really, really unlucky. His xERA is 3.35. If he had a 3.35 ERA, I think he would be one of the top pitchers to be targeting this week. But the problem is, I don't think he's stretched out. He hasn't thrown more than
68 pitches his last outing on Tuesday.
Yeah, he's been the long guy. So yeah.
So maybe you could go to 75, 80.
I just don't know if he's going to get to 5 innings and qualify for a win. So if it's been in a 15-team league, absolutely. In a 10 or a 12, I don't know if he's registering quite yet. Maybe he's someone you pick up and stash. But if you're streaming for wins and strikeouts, and only being able to go 4 innings at a time isn't probably going to get you either of those.
Also, in a 10 or 12, you don't really need to pitch a pitcher against the Mets.
Absolutely.
Who may only go 5 as the longest outing. But again, a deeper format, I think it's different.
He did just pitch against them too, and pitch really, really well. So that is something. All right, moving along, we got Tommy Edman to the IL with an ankle injury. This is another guy who is just on an unreal pace this season, doing things that we haven't really seen Tommy Edman do in terms of power. He had 8 home runs, 2 stolen bases in 252 in 122 plate appearances. He's going to be out for a little while. Where are you at? Are you holding on to him there, Eric?
I think you have to, right? I mean, listen, we know Tommy Edman isn't going to be near the league leaders in home runs, but he's obviously off to a really good start to the season and is an everyday player in maybe the best, or one of the best, however you want to phrase it, lineups in baseball. We have not heard as of right now, we have not heard how long he will be out, but it doesn't appear to be like a major injury, right? He's not dealing with anything like torn or broken or whatever. So you're holding him for a couple of weeks. Like, sure, I'm trying to do that everywhere I can.
Yeah, we talked about him a few weeks ago, Paul and I, on the 24th. So about 2 weeks ago. And I was really surprised with kind of the underlying numbers in terms of power. He had, like the best average exit velocity of his career, best barrel rate of his career, best hard hit percentage of his career. And like these power numbers seem to be somewhat legitimate. They're still in line with where they were a few weeks ago. Like he is still pacing to have like the best power numbers of his career. I would definitely try to hold on to him. You want to piece that Dodgers lineup. What about you, Jason?
I'm glad you brought up those power numbers because it's one of the things that perplexes me with his profile. A lot of that, and yet he's got a bottom 25th percentile bat speed. So he is making the absolute most of what his skills, because looking at it this morning, he's not selling out. He's not selling out for this power, so you don't see the jump and strikeout rate like somebody who's making that sellout, like Logan O'Hoppe. I'm looking at you, those type of things. But for the bat speed is slow, but everything else looks good. We know his defense will keep him on the field as long as he's healthy. But this was again one of those things you bake in when you get him because it's been the last couple of years, just injury. It was nice for that 2-year run when he wasn't hurt, but the last couple of years, something's always popped up. At least it's not the wrist like it was last year, which really kind of sapped into his power. And we saw some of that performance now that he's fully healthy, kind of like two different mechanic pieces. We see the wrist is healthy and Edman's hitting for power. And then, Jorge Polanco, the fact that he can actually use his legs this year and what the kind of season he's having because his knee was so disruptive to his swing last year. And, every hitter will tell you without a foundation, you're nothing. And we saw nothing from Jorge Polanco last year. And now that he's got a healthy leg, we're seeing an amazing run from him right now. Enjoy it while it lasts, but he's doing some things that are just unbelievable. And that's what makes baseball fun.
Rhys Hoskins too said in spring training he felt like he was playing on one leg last year, and that was after the ACL surgery. So I think we expect that guys come back and they're immediately healthy because they're on the field, and sometimes it takes a longer time. It's like the injury or whatever it is strong enough to get you back on the field and play, but it might not be strong enough or recovered enough for you to be the best version of yourself still.
Absolutely.
Great point.
I made this point with, I think, Brendan Donovan, because people are like, well, look at his numbers last year. It's like, well, he was still coming back from injury last year. Right. Like you have to give some of these guys, especially when it's a severe injury, you got to give these guys some time to kind of readjust once they get back on the field. And that's why I don't always love drafting certain guys who are coming off of serious injuries, even if they're quote unquote healthy to start the year.
Right. Also, sometimes it's recalibrating, like coming back and realizing you can't do the thing that you used to in that way, and you have to find another way to do it. Those adjustments take time also. Yeah,
that's a really, really good point. Another guy injured. This one is somewhat devastating. Triston Casas going to the IL with a ruptured patellar tendon. And for those who don't know much about this injury, if you know anything about football, this ended Victor Cruz's career. Like, this is a really, really difficult injury to come back from. It's a very easy injury to re-injure. And I am absolutely petrified for Casas in terms of a player and then in terms of fantasy value. Obviously, I wasn't a big fan of Casas coming into the year. Eric, I think you might have been. Where are you at on Casas?
Based off his reaction, I think he was.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is my Red Sox bias. But the other part was, I think we saw, obviously last year disrupted by ruptured patella tendon and tearing rib cartilage in a swing. I mean, this dude has had two really unfortunate and really brutal injuries. I believed enough in the profile that I appreciated enough of what he did around the injury last year that I felt like with his power upside in that park, that there was something to buy into. He was trying to be a more aggressive hitter this year because he had been far too passive in years past. That was not working out for him. He changed his stance a couple weeks ago, was starting to kind of figure things out a little bit. historically has been pretty bad in April and then stronger as the season went on. But yeah, I mean, listen, the patella tendon, as I was doing some research the other day, like it attaches the kneecap to the shin. So if you want to imagine what rupturing a tendon that attaches your kneecap to your shin would do to you, and especially, listen, the upside for Casas, your glass half full, is he's not a guy who is a big time athlete and not a guy who was getting by on agility and speed anyway. So that type of injury maybe will be easier for him to come back from in the long run because he's a lumbering dude anyway. So can he still get to that kind of power? And is he mobile enough around the bag that he's not just a full-time DH? That's your hope. Obviously, he's out for the rest of this year. The projected recovery time is 8 to 12 months. So we'll have a conversation in the offseason about, is he tracking for the start of 2026 or not? You're obviously dropping him in any formats. I've even dropped him, or will be dropping him, in some keeper formats, depending on your keeper rules, right? Like, I'm dropping him in a league where like the keeper round elevates 5 rounds the next year. So I would have to keep him in the 6th round. I'm not drafting Triston Casas in the 6th round next year. It's not going to happen. So in those formats, you can move on as well. In a dynasty, I think you're obviously holding him because he's still young enough that you just don't know what the rest of the career and the recovery is like. I wouldn't be trying to trade him in those formats right now, just because there's so much that we don't know. And then, yeah, we could talk for 45 minutes about what the Red Sox are going to do at first base, because it is infuriating and confounding and nobody knows. But yeah, Casas, this is it for this year. And it's a bummer. Obviously there were enough first basemen that popped early in the year that hopefully you were able to get one of those guys. And losing a corner infielder doesn't hurt you too much right now. Yeah.
Jason, what about you? Where are you at on Casas?
The point Eric made earlier about when he mentioned Rhys Hoskins, that's a good example here. So it's like, let's say Casas misses the rest of this year. Everything, he comes back and he hits the field and he's playing again. You look back at how much of a disappointment Rhys Hoskins was in 2024, and that could apply here. We don't really have. Can you think of another baseball player that has ruptured their patellar tendon before? And you mentioned a football player, but I don't know if we have grounds. We don't have a foundation to say this is what this could possibly be. So
there was somebody who did it. I'm trying to remember who it was now. I'm going to look it up while you talk.
Okay, maybe it was one of the first. I'm thinking injuries at first base. Another one like
Dexter Fowler. Is that okay? Is it Dexter Fowler? Oh no, it's the Yankees Fowler. That wasn't Dexter Fowler. That was. Sorry, keep talking, Jason.
I don't even know. Dustin Fowler. That's the only other. Yeah, Dustin Fowler would be a Yankee who did it.
Yeah, in his rookie year, he did it in the outfield.
Okay, and then he went to Oakland and AAA and made it back to Oakland in the following year, and yeah.
I've got a bigger name. It's a much different position, but it was Edwin Diaz. That was what he ruptured during the WBC.
Oh, that's what he ruptured? Wow. Okay.
So he was then out for like the full year, right? So
yeah, I mean that's
came back and he's been good. He's been good since coming back. So.
But I would say, like, the point is, what are they going to do? I mean, like Eric said, we could talk for 45 minutes what Boston's going to do at first base, but maybe we should spend a minute on that. Like right now, like Romy Gonzalez has played first base against the righty the last couple of days, and that's typically, he has usually been the other Swiss Army knife along with Rob Refsnyder, and I don't know. Like, I was trying to look through, like, what do you do? It's like, it's a shame they can't put a first baseman's been on Yoshida and give him a spot to play. It's like, I don't know if they have a good in-house solution for this.
I'm going to rant for very quick.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, Vaughn Grissom has played first base for 5 games in AAA, and the person who covers the AAA Red Sox said that Vaughn Grissom is going to play a majority of first base in AAA. So that is the potential option in the long term. Grissom put on some weight in the offseason. He is not a prototypical first baseman, but he's having a really good year in AAA. And so again, Vaughn Grissom as a batting average guy who could maybe hit 15 homers in Fenway Park in a full season. That, it's not a first base profile, but that could be an option down the stretch. Romy Gonzalez in small sample size, like making strong contact this year, and
Right.
like again in deeper formats, depending on position eligibility, could be viable for you. The issue here obviously centers around Devers. And it centers around Devers in a way that it centered around Devers in the offseason too, where there seems to be an inconsistency in the Red Sox front office and Alex Cora, where in the offseason, Cora seemed to have a different opinion on moving Devers off of third base than Breslow did. Breslow, when he spoke to the media Saturday, said that Devers was in consideration to play first base. Cora, like 30 minutes later, said he's not playing first base, he's our DH. That he didn't want to do it to the player, that it took a while for Devers to want a DH. He doesn't want to move Devers in the middle of the season. All of that is super interesting to me, like why the two of them can't get on the same page. And also, I don't get it from Alex Cora's perspective, why you wouldn't consider moving Devers to first base in the middle of the season, unless there's something going on that they don't want to tell us about. I mean, on the Red Sox broadcast on Saturday, they had Lou Merloni and some other people who are like, Devers could play first base. It would take him 3 days to play first base. Like, he is an infielder. He would have to make some adjustments. Devers' defensive issues at third base primarily were throwing, not fielding. Right. He would be a decent enough first baseman. He'd have to learn the angles off the bat in a way that are different than at third, but he could do it. And so why does Cora not want him to do it, quote unquote, for the player? Has Devers said something to him about not wanting to play first? Are Devers' shoulders enough of an issue that they don't want him in the field at all? They just want him to DH? It's confusing enough, especially when you consider what we talked about, that this is a season-ending injury for Casas, and that it may keep him out for part of the season next year and may actually impact his ability to play first base long-term. This isn't moving Devers to first base for 3 weeks. This could be moving Devers to first base for 3 years. So I don't understand why Cora is so adamant that they're not going to consider it. To me, it says something is happening behind the scenes that they're not telling us and that we are not saying. And moving Devers to first base opens up DH. Opening up DH means you can call up Roman Anthony, because then you can move the outfielders around. You can give Wilyer Abreu a DH spot. You can you can create playing time for the top prospect in baseball by using the DH as a rotational spot, not by just planting Devers there every day. Or just call up Yoshida, who was hitting really well in spring, but I guess can't throw. So, okay, fine, whatever. Then Yoshida's your DH. It really is limiting that they seem to not want to even consider it. And I have to think that they're going to have some conversations this week where they hash that out behind the scenes and maybe wind up making the decision that Devers goes to first base, like they made the decision that Bregman would be signed, even though Cora didn't seem to want to move Devers in the offseason.
It almost has the feeling of Cora went to talk to Devers about it, and Devers was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, you guys already moved me off the position I wanted to be on. Now I'm finally comfortable, and I don't want to do it. And Cora's covering for the player.
Yeah, and perhaps it's like Cora's being the mouthpiece, so Devers doesn't look like the bad guy again.
Again, they don't want to go through the issues they went through. I don't know what they're going to do.
Maybe they could go sign Bobby Dalbec, who just got DFA'd by the White Sox this morning.
And I mean, this is if they're looking long term, there's a different Vaughn. There's Andrew Vaughn that could probably be gotten for affordable price out of Chicago, or a Josh Bell.
There's also Rhys Hoskins, who's on an expiring contract in Milwaukee. And I know that they are competing, but they're 2 games under 500. And if they could get a prospect of something interesting from Boston, and Hoskins and Fenway would be interesting.
But I mean, I agree. If you can move Devers to first base, that is the best possible solution for your overall team, because it gets that DH spot unclogged where you could add a rotating piece. As far as Casas goes, I do disagree a little bit with Eric in terms of dynasty. I'm totally fine selling low here. Like if someone is, especially if I'm competing right now, and someone comes to me and goes, listen, you're not going to be able to use him for at least a year, I wouldn't mind just getting out from under him, because 1, I've never been in love with his skills. And 2, I have no idea how he's going to recover from this, if he's going to recover and be the guy that can hit 40 home runs when healthy. So I'm totally fine kind of saying, yeah, I'll give you a discounted price, give me 50 cents on the dollar or whatever, just to get a different guy in there. So, all right, let's move on to the next injured guy, Royce Lewis, back on Tuesday. Let's fucking go. Jason, are you excited? Yeah, are you excited for Royce Lewis?
Oh my God. I absolutely, I am, only because my labor team is just suffering so many injuries. And so putting him, I am on this screen over here actively right now, taking him off, putting him in. I don't care. It's like, put him in. If he gets hurt in his first at bat, oh well. Yes, I'm excited to finally be able to use Royce Lewis.
Yeah, he's going to get hurt in his second at bat. He'll hit a home run.
Then homer again. Yeah, home first at bat. Give me a stat and then get hurt. So yes, it is. I'm excited because I'm tired of staring at so many red marks on my bench in AL labor. The only league that I have Royce Lewis in. But yes, the Minnesota offense needs the skills. We'll see who's going to get impacted here. We always got to talk about the other side of these screens.
Yeah, probably Brooks Lee.
Why? He's actually hitting.
But the Aaron Gleeman, who covers the Twins for The Athletic, mentioned that they will that Royce Lewis is coming back to play third, but they're going to DH him more often than they were planning to originally, for his health sake. Obviously, Mickey Gasper right now is their DH.
That's who needs to go away.
but when they play Lewis at third, the question is just like, are they going to keep DHing Jeffers? Are they going to DH Jonah Bride? Are they going to DH Cody Clemens? They have enough options that I don't know that Brooks Lee, if he's not in the field, right, is going to be an everyday player, because his bat is fine, but he's basically a batting average guy with no power and no speed. So if you're not playing that bat in the field, do you opt to fill your lineup with somebody who has a little bit more pop, or like Cody Clemens, who hits left-handed, things like that?
Right now, Lee has played every day. He's played second or third every day this past week, whereas some of the other guys have been on the platoon end of things. So,
right, because they won't.
Gasper seems to be the easy one. That needs to.
Yeah, I think
DFA him. He can make his way down to St. Paul, and nobody's going to claim him. That's the easy one.
Yeah, and then Edward Julian too. Like if they decide they prefer Brooks Lee at second base.
Yeah.
I think Julian could be the one that loses the playing time here. As much as he is a high walk rate guy, he's just not making enough contact. Though he's
already lost 2 days. This week they faced 5 righties, and he sat in 2 of those games, and he's obviously sitting today against a lefty.
Yeah, you just know they're not going to like DFA someone like Jonah Bride or Cody Clemens. This is a team that's been sticking with Chris Paddock because they don't want to lose him completely off the roster. So
yeah, but they're paying him.
They're paying these other guys too. They're just not paying him as much. They're just a really cheap organization.
Yeah. I will say Edward Julian also only has 1 minor league option left. So if they option him, that would be it. Mickey Gasper has 3. So it does feel like Royce Lewis up, Gasper down is the easy transaction, and then it might just be Julian to the bench,
or it may be all these guys or a bunch of these guys rotate, and then they're all playing 4 days a week
for a week and a half, and then when Royce Lewis sadly gets hurt again, let's
not put that evil back.
That's true, and I want him to. I've never rooted for a player to be healthy like this because I just think he's exciting.
Oh yeah. He's one of the few guys I break my no injury prone guys rule for. Like he's on a per plate appearance basis. Royce Lewis is just unreal. All right, let's finish out the news with Tyler Stephenson. He's going to be back. Is he viable in one catcher leagues there, Eric?
I think so. We were drafting him as a top 10 catcher coming into the year before the injury, drafting him as a top 10 catcher coming into the year. He's going to hit in the middle of the lineup in Cincinnati. We know that he's probably good for like a 260 batting average around, 15, 20 homers in a full season in that ballpark. And they also have come out and said, because of the injuries to Heimer Candelario and Christian Encarnacion Strand, they're going to also put him at DH and first base sometimes. So you're getting a catcher who maybe plays 80% of his team's games, 85% of his team's games. And that's not a Wilson Contreras situation, but that's a lot of playing time in a one catcher format. And so, yeah, I'd be interested in him. And I think if you were, doing the dance with like a Gabriel Moreno type or like an Alejandro Kirk, and they haven't really kind of broken out in the way that we were hoping. I'd rather have Tyler Stephenson.
What about you, Jason?
So taking a look at catcher right now, if we just went qualified catcher, it's like, so we're thinking, okay, let's look at qualified catcher, where things stand right now. The 12th best catcher by qualified is Yainer Diaz, who's having a terrible season. Right. And Salvador Perez is just getting back in, but just qualified catchers, he's not there. But as Eric said, we were drafting him as such to start the season. And if we can catch a heater he's missed the cool part of the weather in Cincinnati. He's coming in as things will start warming up, and maybe he can get off to resume a nice offensive start. So yeah, I'm interested in the one catcher format, but again, that catcher bar is kind of low. It's because we've had some disappointments this year. It's nice to see Edgar Cuero step up and do what he's doing with the White Sox. Saw him down here in Charlotte, but overall the catcher spot, like I have Yainer Diaz, I have I had Wilson Contreras. I traded him in leagues where I'm already rebuilding type of situation. So the catcher bar this year, I went in and invested on some catchers, and it has not paid off.
Yeah.
So I'm probably gonna go right back to where I used to go to.
Justin, let me ask you, Tyler Stephenson or Augustin Ramirez, who has gone 1 for 20 since his hot start. So if he was picked up because somebody was really happy after that hot start, 1 for 20, kind of, I mean, listen, he was only on a 250 hitter in the minors or this year. So like, it's not a shock. Tyler Stephenson, we kind of know who he is. Would you make that swap?
I think it depends on my depth of format, but more than likely I would. Not that I think there's going to be I don't think that Ramirez is going to be bad or anything. I think he's going to be fine. I think the problem is when you have a guy like Ramirez, will the Marlins stick with him? Even though the Marlins are rebuilding and they've shown they'll stick with guys like he has a lot to learn defensively. And so they may say, let's send you back down. You can get your head right in terms of your bat, but also learn more about the catching position. I could see them doing that, and then all of a sudden you're left holding the bag, and I would have rather have Tyler Stephenson. But the shallower the format, the more I want to lean into that upside of Ramirez.
Can I throw a really annoying wrinkle into this?
Absolutely.
Nick Fortes is coming back next week. Liam Hicks, the other catcher on the active roster, has no options left.
Now
it's Liam Hicks, so they could easily just DFA him and keep Ramirez on the active roster. But I did just notice that when I was looking.
Yeah, that could throw a wrinkle into it. I'm kind of looking at Ramirez. It is only a week, so I don't want to overrate how bad Ramirez has been.
Oh, for sure.
Especially because the underlying numbers are actually fine. Even in this time, he's got a 96% zone contact. But there's a chance. There's a chance that he does get sent back down. Like I said, you have Fortes coming back. You don't have the roster wiggle room, and Ramirez has stuff to learn. And learning it in AAA where he can play every day is a good spot for him to go. So yeah, I probably would switch him out for Stephenson.
Yeah, I only brought that up because it's the question of the trendy upside potential versus the potentially boring but steady production that we know.
And I don't want to sell Tyler Stephenson short either. Stevenson's one of those guys that he, as a catcher, makes a lot of contact. Mm-hmm. We know there is raw power in that bat. We just haven't necessarily seen it play out in terms of home runs. But he is in Cincinnati. He's a guy who could, I think, in a season where everything goes right, could hit 30 home runs in a full season in Cincinnati with a good batting average. I think there is going to be a Tyler Stephenson year in which he hits 280 with 27 home runs, and you're oh, this is the number 2 catcher in fantasy. So I don't want people to think Tyler Stephenson's boring. The floor is boring, which is fine. That's what you want from a floor. I don't think Tyler Stephenson's ever going to play himself out of a job, but right. I still think there is big upside in Stephenson's bat. We're talking about a guy who is still just 28 years old. Like he still has plenty of time to kind of reach the ceiling that I saw early on in his career coming up from the minors, and I still think it's somewhere in there. All right, let's move on to FAAB. The big FAAB ticket of the weekend is top prospect Coby Mayo, who we've seen come up a few times and kind of struggle and then get sent back down. But he is coming up. He should be playing every single day. How much FAAB are you blowing, Eric, on Coby Mayo?
Listen, I have some leagues where I drafted Matt Shaw, and I am in desperate need of a third baseman, and I will probably bid more than I should because I just have a really bad feeling about this. And it's less about the player and more about the situation. We have seen them consistently not want to play Coby Mayo over Ramon Urias when he's healthy. Urias and Jordan Westberg are both dealing with hamstring injuries, so that it's not long term. You're looking at like a few weeks, and we've seen them kind of yo-yo Coby Mayo around. I know in the first start on Saturday, there are some people saying Mayo didn't get to the field in time, even though he was on the taxi squad. So I don't really know when and Ramon Urias was hurt before.
They were in Baltimore. I mean, no, Norfolk is in Charlotte. It's not that far from Baltimore.
And Urias had been hurt before. He didn't get they knew he was potentially going on the IL. So I know that we didn't know Mayo was coming up until noon, but they may have known before that. Emmanuel Rivera started against the lefty. They like starting Emmanuel Rivera against lefties. I don't trust Baltimore, man. I really don't. But I like Mayo as a player. He's not going to run, but it's a 20 homer bat. He got off to a slow start, but was hitting really well over the last 3 weeks. There's certainly power in there. We know they moved the fences in a little bit in Baltimore. I'm being cautious. If I'm going in NFBC format and I haven't hit on I've been outbid in a lot of places, so I still have $800 something in some leagues where I'll throw a triple digit bid on him, but I think that's going to be in a little over 100, 150, 160. I just can't see myself emptying the bank on somebody who might be back in 3 weeks.
And maybe this is anecdotal, but I do feel like the weeks after the big $300-$400 bids are always the week someone overspends. Someone who missed out on Nick Kurtz last week, me in a lot of leagues, will go out and spend $350 on Coby Mayo and it'll get burned. I love Coby Mayo. I think Coby Mayo, once he is up for good, will be a very, very good power hitter at the major league level. I do have some fears of exactly what you're saying, which is we have seen them yo-yo him back and forth and not really give him an opportunity to acclimate at the major league level. He's got to hit in order to stay up. He's absolutely got to hit. This isn't a situation where hey, if he struggles in his first 2 weeks, he's going to stay up and he'll figure it out. No, he'll go right back down to AAA. So I kind of share some of your fear. That being said, if you need power, this is a massive power hitter coming up, on a team that needs some power in the middle of that lineup. So I'm going to be in on Mayo because I'm a stupid man. But you probably should be a little bit more cautious than I'm probably going to be this week. Jason, where are you at on Mayo?
Can I throw water on this fire? Because I just saw him play Thursday. He was here in Charlotte. Norfolk was here playing Charlotte. Just saw him and went to a game with two folks that listen to this podcast. And we all just kind of looked at each other going, what? We've seen him play a few times. Saw him last year because obviously Norfolk comes to Charlotte, but we saw 4 plate appearances in that game, and I don't believe a ball left the infield, and just a lot of velocity up. And one of the guys who's a big Orioles fan, very active in the Orioles social media, looking at things as it comes from a scouting angle. We just saw a lot of velocity challenges up from guys like Mike Clevenger pitched in this game, and we just didn't see the quality of contact that wow. I mean, he still looks like Chris Bryant physically in the plate with the swing, the statue, everything. But I didn't walk away from that game going, wow, yeah, this guy's ready. It looked like just any other guy. If it wasn't for the last name on the jersey, you might not have known that this is a top prospect. So that's kind of my thing on it. And as you guys said, he could be up and he could be down as quickly as he's up. My first reaction when he got called up was, can he pitch? Because that's still Baltimore's problem. And so that's just me throwing water to fire. I will not be one of those guys aggressively bidding on that, but that could also just be very recency bias because I just did not see anything that showed me that, yeah, this guy is ready and he's just manhandling major league cast-offs. That's what AAA pitching is for the most part these days. And he did not have a good game.
All right. Let's move on to Matt Shaw, who is going to be coming back up reportedly. He was a big quote unquote sleeper guy who got pushed up quite a bit in draft season. Did not have a successful first run, but he is returning. Eric, you mentioned that you drafted Matt Shaw and had to drop him. Are you just going back to pick him back up?
I would in deeper formats. Like in a 12 team, I might not immediately, depending on what I was able to do. But like, you know, I don't think he forgot how to hit. I think he hadn't been really given a long enough runway to like adjust to the major league level. I think what we're seeing, like after a slow start at AAA, the Cubs AAA hitting coach said that they just talked about like just him only focusing on being on time, just getting to the ball on time, not thinking about the other swings, the adjustments, all the levers, those moving pieces. But I have not actually found that he's definitely coming back up. The hitting coach said he's ready. And then I saw there was a report on The Athletic that said that it's like that he will be back up, but I didn't know that they're definitely calling him back up. Like, I don't know that there's a move imminent unless you saw something that I did not.
I thought I had, but maybe I'm not seeing it now. So maybe this is more of a stash play.
I think that is, and I think that's an interesting option too, is like, depending on your leagues, like Shaw might be up in 2 weeks, right? 3 weeks. If he has really been hitting the ball well of late. It's just, you know, when is that going to happen? And we think it should happen now, but maybe they want him to get a little bit more of a, you know, a little bit more hot streak, a little runway underneath him. And so what does your roster look like? Can you stash him for 2 weeks on the bench? Maybe you can. But that's why another reason why I'd rather pick up Mayo, because I know he's here right now, even though would it shock me if Shaw is up and more valuable at the end of the year than Coby Mayo, who could be back down in a month? Like, no, I'd probably rather have Shaw rest of season, but Mayo for right now.
Yeah, so the only thing I'm seeing is a report from their hitting coach saying he's ready to go back. Not that they're bringing him back. So this, again, may be more of a stash play if you're looking to stash a guy who could be back up in the next week or two. Jason, where are you at on Shaw? Are you willing to stash him?
Yeah, I would be. I would be, because obviously the price is a little easier now, especially if he's not going to come up for a week or two. If I've got a bench spot and I'm still like trying to hang on to that reliever that I thought was going to get saves, or if I'm still hanging on to that pitcher for streaming options, I'd rather take the option of that bat that everybody was chasing in the winter to try to sit on him before we get to the next FAAB-palooza, if you will. And all of a sudden you got to pay the price because everybody wants to get back in.
Yeah, I think I would too. I mean, I really liked Matt Shaw coming into the season. I felt like the price got a little bit unaffordable at points, but now you're not having to pay much for him, right? And especially if there isn't a report that he is coming back, and it is just a matter of like, he probably will be back here in the near future. You may not have to pay very much. You throw $20-$30 on him in $1,000 FAAB league to kind of sit him on your bench and kind of see what happens. I think is a good opportunity. This is a good hitter. This is a kid who, you know, he's got some power, he's got some speed, but mostly he is just a good in-zone hitter. I like him, and I think he will be impactful rest of the way once he is back up.
If you had one spot to stash, Justin, are you stashing Matt Shaw or Zach Geloff, who's probably back not this upcoming week, but the week after?
Shaw. I understand.
Yeah,
like,
I say Geloff.
it's a hard thing because I think Geloff is one of those guys that he's gonna hit for power, right? And he's gonna steal some bases, but like that in zone contact has not been figured out. He is just a bad hitter. He's the inverse of Matt Shaw, where he's got these kind of flashy tools, but the one that matters the most, being able to actually put the ball in play, is the one in question. So
does that matter? Is that a skill that matters?
I think it's a skill that matters. I get yelled at for talking about it too much, but to me, I want the guy who I know can make contact, and I think Matt Shaw can make contact. Whereas Geloff, I think Geloff is just going to be the guy he's always been. Now in Sacramento, that may pay some dividends, right? Because he may hit 205, but it could be 205 with a bunch of home runs and stolen bases. So if you're looking for that, I mean, take a look at your team context. If you need some power and some speed, and your batting average is really, really good right now, yeah, Zach Geloff makes a lot of sense. But I think we're also moving away from the A's being that team that will just keep guys up because they suck. This is a team that, is currently 2 games above 500 and may have some aspirations of trying to compete a little bit this year. So I don't know that Geloff continues to stay up in the way that he did last year, even in spite of struggles. All right, let's talk about Miguel Vargas, who has been quietly pretty hot in Chicago over the course of the last few weeks. Is he a guy that you're going back to the well? He's a we're fans of him on this show. At least Paul and I have been in the past. Jason, where are you at on Miguel Vargas?
So a couple of weeks ago, I was watching a White Sox broadcast, and they made mention of, 10 days ago, I was watching a White Sox game, and I don't know why I was watching a White Sox game, but I was, and they made mention of him making a change to his swing, working through some things about getting his hands up. And I'm looking at the video right now, and I can't tell which one was what, but Miguel Vargas had his hands lower, and then he's brought them up higher. So I'm guessing lower was last year, because often when these guys are late to the ball, so it's like if we get our hands higher, it's quicker to get to the baseball. So he was working through some swing changes. So to see him get some of those results, that's, that would some nice early validation for that. I mean, the thing with the White Sox, it's always the same. Great. They're terrible. He's going to play as long as he's producing, he's hitting, and he's one of the better talents on the roster. So he should have the opportunity to do that type of thing. So in an AL league, I'm intrigued. I mentioned earlier that they brought back Johan Rojas, just came off the IL from his rehab assignment. So Rojas is back in play, but they did DFA Bobby Dalbec. And so right now, Vargas has played first, third all week. He's been in the lineup all week, and I don't see any of that changing, even though he's hit 8th at one point, but he's hit 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 5th, and 8th. So they have him all over the lineup, but they want to see what's there. And the other key thing, out of options. So he is on this roster come hell or high water, and if he's getting some nice results from this, good for him.
What about you, Eric? Are you in on Miguel Vargas?
Yeah, I was early in the season, just based on his approach, and the surface level stats didn't kind of bear out early on. But I'm still back in on the approach. I wrote what would be a Justin Mason favorite article last week, where I made a leaderboard. I looked at zone swing rate, zone contact rate, chase rate, and I looked at hitters who basically swing in the zone a lot, don't swing outside of the zone a lot, make when they do swing in the zone. And then Pitcher List has a cool stat about zone run value. So just like what is the actual run value of your swings in the zone? So like, for example, Jean-Kenzie Noel swings a lot in the zone, but at a lot of pitches that don't add a lot of run value, like 2-0 sliders that are like low and away. And Vargas popped off of that, like over a major league average in basically everything you want him to be in. 83% contact rate overall. He rarely swings and misses. He's lifting the ball less this year, which I think is better for him because it's helping with just the overall solid contact. 90 mile an hour average exit velocity is pretty solid. It's also up from him in years past. So yeah, I I don't think he's in a 12-team league. You might like stream him on and off your roster just when he's, hot or facing, in a good matchup. But in a deeper format, given the multi-position and the everyday spot and the contact skills, like I like it.
Yeah, I don't think that Vargas is ever going to be one of these guys that is a star. Like, I think there was this thought process that, oh, he's a, top 25 prospect in baseball and the Dodgers. Like, this guy is going to be a future star in fantasy baseball. I don't think that Vargas has that kind of upside. He's probably of just a better real life player than he is a fantasy guy. That being said, there is pop in this bat. He's shown weird speed in the minor leagues at times, though I don't think that is going to translate. But what he can do is hit, and he's got a really, really good approach. I think this is a guy that can accumulate, and I don't think he's ever going to light up the score sheet, but could he hit 600 plus plate appearances on a bad White Sox team and deliver you enough power, a little bit of speed, and a decent batting average? Absolutely. And the swing change definitely is having an effect. You look at where he was in the first few weeks of the season, he was at about an 83% zone contact. So far since then, it's at 86.5%, while not sacrificing kind of that O swing that makes him such an asset, especially in on-base percentage leagues. So I like Vargas as a guy to pick up in deeper formats. In 10s and 12s, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to have enough pop or speed, and he's on the terrible White Sox team, so the runs and RBIs aren't going to be as great. But in a 15-team league, he definitely should be rostered, especially because I think in most leagues, he's infield, outfield eligible, which you love.
Right. I got something for those watching the YouTube. Look at this last couple of weeks right here. He's gone from well below average, and then look at these last couple of weeks where the changes are starting to process results. Like by expected WOBA, he is above major league average right now. So these are positive signs when people are making these types of changes and then getting these types of results. The White Sox may have untapped something here with Vargas, like I said, because he's out of those options. He's going to get the chance to do this as long as he is. He's probably going to get more chances as the league adjusts to things, but this is the nice type of thing you want to see, that type of positive growth. So, Eric, you were talking about like a Justin Mason sweet spot article. This is a Scott Chu sweet spot image, like right here, the breakdown. And this is right here, but this would be the thing I'd want to come look at.
And we love some Scott Chu on the Sleeper and the Bust. So, all right, let's move on to Hyseong Kim, who is being recalled by the Dodgers. This was one of their kind of offseason additions that some people were excited about. Didn't make the opening day roster. Now going to be an everyday player, or at least on the roster. I don't know if he's going to be an everyday player. Eric, where are you at on Hyseong Kim?
I'm going to be outbid by a lot of people this weekend, and I know that. Chris Taylor started at second base on Saturday. Miguel Rojas made 2 starts at second base this week while Tommy Edman was battling his injury. So the Dodgers have veterans on the roster that they feel comfortable using at second base. So we can't just say Kim is going to be the everyday starting second baseman. I know that we saw that great video of the mammoth home run that he hit. It was on Twitter everywhere. He's hitting 252 at AAA this year. He has a 12% swinging strike rate at AAA this year. He has a 75% contact rate overall at AAA this year and an average exit velocity of 87 miles an hour at AAA. Yeah. If that wasn't connected to the Dodgers and that wasn't somebody who we were excited about, coming from the KBO, like you wouldn't be running to pick that player up off waivers. The steals are real. 13 stolen bases. He will run. He was a 30 stolen base guy multiple years in Korea as well. So I think the speed plays. I don't think there's a lot of pop. I have some concerns about the swing and miss. If you're swinging and missing 12% of the time at AAA, is that 14, 15% at the big league level? This is one of those situations where, like, especially since they're second base, I would rather pick up Zach Geloff and wait a week than pick up Hyseong Kim right now.
Yeah, I think I'm probably in that same boat. Jason, where are you
Make
at on
that 3.
Hyseong Kim? Yeah,
Make that 3.
I think Hyseong Kim, and I'm sorry for the lazy comp, but I think he is very similar to Hyseong Kim. And not so much in terms of the overall profile, but in terms of what you can expect in their first year. Talking about a guy coming over from Korea who doesn't have a ton of power in the bat necessarily. There is speed, and I think there is some contact ability, but I don't know how well that's going to translate in his first season. I think Hyseong Kim's going to be one of these guys that becomes more interesting in year 2. And so, and especially when you're on a Dodgers team that is so loaded that you don't really know where the everyday plate appearances are coming from, I just don't know if there's going to be enough juice to squeeze from this. So he'll probably be in some waterfall bids of mine in 15 teamers, but in 10s and 12s, I don't think he registers. And honestly, I think you might be able to find better options in some 15s as well. So, yeah, I'm not super enthused by Hyseong Kim being an option. What about Javier Baez, who I'm assuming Jason added to this rundown?
I didn't.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no.
Oh, it was Eric. All right, Eric.
I did.
I know he's going to Colorado this week. He's triple eligible. I still don't know if I care yet about Javier Baez. Prove me wrong here.
I added him. I said in my article this morning, I said, yes, it's the year 2025, and I'm recommending adding Javi Baez. Listen, he's gone 24 for his last 80 over his last month, has homered in 3 straight games. He had offseason surgery, so there's a health component to this as well. He is playing really good defense in center field, actually. So again, the defensive component to keep him on the field. But there's a couple things that I've noticed, and we're going back to the Justin Mason stats.
I know. I'm
career low chase rate, career low overall swing rate, career high zone contact rate of like 86%, Justin. Like an 86% zone contact rate is really not that bad. Career low swinging strike rate, is pulling the ball more than he ever has in his career, but is also lowered the fly ball rate a little bit. So is hitting the ball on the ground more than he ever has in his career, which for somebody with decent speed, hitting hard ground balls for him is actually going to benefit his batting average. He doesn't need to be like lifting the ball in the air. So yes, the exit velocity isn't great. Yes, the average exit velocity is lower than it's been. I understand that. And he's not a 300 hitter, right? I think we all get that as well. But I'm seeing a guy who is making enough changes to his approach and is playing every day that like maybe we're getting a 250 version of Javier Baez who has some speed, is in a decent lineup, and is playing all over the field. And I also know what to look for, right? Like I know I'm looking right now at his zone swing rates and his contact rate, and I can just keep tracking the production. And if the production starts to dip and I start looking at his chase rate and it's going up, then I'm like, cool, Javier Baez going back to who he was before, and I'm gonna move on from him. But if I can get a 260 hitter who can run a little bit, and I say a little bit because he, maybe he's like an 8 to 10 stolen base guy, not like, huge wheels. But if I'm getting a 260 hitter who I can move all over the field, he's picked up outfield eligibility in certain formats already. Like that's valuable in deeper formats on my bench, or, to cover for injuries.
Yeah, I think he should have outfield eligibility in every format at this point. He's got 13 games in center field. Jason, where are you at on Baez?
He's also hit a home run in 3 straight games. I mean,
yeah.
I'm looking over at this. I'm like, wow, he is like 3 home runs and 7 RBIs this weekend. And going to Colorado, take the chance, ride the heater. That you get to a point. This is really a ride the heater type of situation. Enjoy it, maybe while it lasts. But guys get on hot streaks. This may be one of those, and it's good to hear that he is making adjustments to so many of the things that have held him back over the years. And getting out of his own way and finding some success. So good for him. So yes, I'd be willing to ride the heater on a week-by-week basis.
I was just looking up the guys he hit home runs off of, and the first guy was AJ Blueblaw,
Yeah.
The
Oh,
Astros.
and you know what? I tweeted. That was a grand slam, and I tweeted about that one because it was a homer in 3 ballparks. It was a Crawford box special.
Yeah, that was I don't know how much I'm buying this. I will say Eric's right in terms of like the underlying numbers looking better here, right? He is making the best in zone contact of his career. It's not coming with the power we saw early on in his career, and the XBA is still like 239 if I'm remembering correctly. So I think this is going to come crashing back to earth. He's running an insanely high BABIP right now, but going to Colorado, I'll take that gamble that it can continue for a little bit, and then you kind of play it week to week with a guy like Baez, especially with that triple eligibility. Having a guy who is that eligible, especially in your deeper formats, makes a lot of sense because you can put him on your bench and he covers every single spot. And even in your shallower formats where you have daily moves, if you're playing in like a daily Yahoo or a daily ESPN league where you can make lineup changes every single day, like, hey, your third baseman sitting, put in Javi Baez. Hey, you have an outfielder who's sitting, put in Javi Baez. Like being able to have that flexibility with a triple eligibility makes sense. And if he has figured something out and these underlying numbers do stick around, yeah, like could you get, you're not going to get prime Javi Baez, but could you get a guy who hits 23, 24 home runs with a 250 batting average? You'll take that as a reserve infielder that can move all around your team.
Going to cost you like $5.
Yeah. I can't believe we're talking about Javi Baez. All right, let's move on to I skipped over Chase Meidroth, who is returning from the IL, returned from the IL. This is a high contact guy, probably best suited for deeper leagues. But Eric, any interest in Meidroth?
Yeah, I have him in a few places. And again, deeper formats, 15-team leagues where, I can move him. He's playing every day at shortstop, but depending on your league type, there's some multi-eligibility, position eligibility. Hitting leadoff, scored 4 runs in 3 games so far. It's the White Sox, so the counting stats aren't going to be great, but I think the batting average will be solid, and I think he'll score some runs at the top of the lineup, and he'll run a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. And so, yeah, I'm happy to add him if I need middle infield, and batting average is my primary focus.
What about you, Jason?
My most rostered player coming out of draft season was Chase Meidroth. Have him just about everywhere, and happy to put him back in the lineup just for the batting average and hopefully runs that come along with that. But I picked him up everywhere. It cost me anywhere from reserve pick. I think I had to spend $1 in a league to get him somewhere else, but just to be able to get some value out of that is nice. And he is back in all my lineups immediately.
I mean, I love Meidroth in on-base percentage leagues. Dude just walks. He gets on base. That's all he does is get on base. He would be Billy Bean's wet dream if this is still Moneyball times. But there's just not a lot of power or speed there. So I think in your 10s and 12s, especially, like I don't know that outside of on-base percentage leagues, I don't know that there's going to be enough juice to really propel him, especially on that bad White Sox. That being said, like in on-base percentage leagues, like this Meidroth is a guy that could easily be like a 425.
Hey, but it's been a good White Sox week. Anybody else want to raise their hand and admit they dropped Luis Robert Jr. last weekend?
No, I don't want to.
And he's had 2 homers and 3 steals this week. Yeah, that was me. I did that.
Should not have done that. I don't know why you did that. That was bad, Jason. Bad, Jason. All right,
couldn't take it anymore, man.
We're not going to do a group therapy session right now on that because we still have too many guys to cover. Jeff McNeil back from the IL has a home run already. I believe infield, outfield eligible in most formats as well. Jason, where are you at on McNeil?
Sure, I would take him over Luis Robert Jr. just for the transition purposes. It's the batting average situation. He's played, he's got the in-season eligibility. He's played 6 of 7 games this week. He sat against the one lefty, and that's what you have to expect out of McNeil. So, yes, as long as the Mets offense has still got to make some improvements. I know it's had some struggles in some areas, but overall, I would be happy to have McNeil on my roster this week.
What about you there, Eric?
Yeah, me too. Listen, I know he's played some games at center field. I think I'm just like a little glitchy over here. I'm trying to figure out why. Yeah. I would add him. I know he's played some games in center. I can't see him like really sticking there regularly, defensively speaking. But like if he picks up 2 games in center during a week and then can play 2 or 3 games at second base while they're playing Luis Angel Acuna also at second base, it's just getting a decent batting average hitter in a good lineup.
Yeah, this is your traditional empty kind of batting average dude, right? Like he's a cheaper version of Luis Arraez, the dude who can hit 300. Probably not. He's going to give you a little bit of power, maybe a little bit of speed, but not much of either. So it really is probably a 15-team guy. Double eligible, so great for your bench in a 15-team league. I just don't know there's enough juice that I care that much about a guy like Jeff McNeil. Outside of I desperately need batting average, and my other categories are covered. So let's move over to a guy who's probably not going to give you batting average, but might give you some other stuff, including some amazing defensive plays if you're into that sort of thing. That's Daulton Varsho, who's back. He's already homered in his return. He made the most amazing defensive catch I think I have seen in a really long time. I think in his first or second game back in the majors. I've always been a big Daulton Varsho guy in spite of the bad underlying contact skills. Jason, where are you at on Varsho?
Very happy he's back.
Before you start, Jason?
Yeah, go ahead.
He was just scratched today with lower back tightness.
You've got to be kidding.
Lovely.
Wow.
That said, maybe he's because he's been carrying the offense on his back.
Maybe.
It's situation. Very happy that he's back. Obviously, it looks like a timing. He's trying to catch up timing wise. He's had some strikeouts. He's had a couple of home runs. He's still walking, and that's the great part about Varsho. He's always willing to take that walk. He was hitting in spring training. It just took him a while to get back because they wanted him to throw. They wanted him to be able to throw before he got into games situations. So again, happy he's back. I've sat on him in a couple of leagues, waiting for him to come back. Bought him on that discount, understanding I was probably going to miss most of April, and he did. So happy that he's back. Hopefully this lower back tightness is just he was having too much fun last night and just needs a day off. Or he twisted his back making that amazing catch. So one of the two, but hopefully it's nothing serious. But I'm happy he's back and looking for, when you're looking for somebody that could still give you 15 home runs and double-digit steals in an OBP league format, more valuable batting average, anything above 230 would be a bonus.
All right, Eric, where are you at on Varsho?
Yeah, I've never been a giant fan, just because I think the batting average concerns are very real. There's not like that, the hitter we thought he was in Arizona before the trade. We're not getting back to that. The speed is pretty good if he gets on base enough to run, and the defensive value should keep him in the lineup every day if he's healthy, and so that allows him to accumulate enough homers and stolen bases, even though I don't think he has tremendous pop. He doesn't have amazing speed, but if he plays, he's going to accumulate that. I think for me, he's more of a 15-team league guy. In a 12-team league, I see a 230 hitter who can chip in home runs and stolen bases, and like that's fine. But that's also the type of hitter who maybe goes off of your lineup when you get that like breakout guy who comes out and hits the ground running or whatever. And so, yeah, I'm kind of like a shoulder shrug on Varsho. I'll add him in some places, provided the reports on the back come back okay. I'll put in some tepid bids on him.
Yeah, I think I've come full circle of Varsho. Varsho was a guy that I hated as a prospect when everybody loved him because I didn't think he was defensively going to be able to stick a catcher. And I was right about that. And then I fell in love with him when everybody else fell out of love with him because I was like, oh man, I think this guy has real 30-20 potential at some point in his career, but he's never been able to make the kind of contact he needs to make in order to unlock any of that. And now I feel kind of like Eric does, which is a little meh. Like I would want him to be, and I think he can be an accumulator if he's healthy, but now dealing with a back issue after missing part of the season with injuries. He dealt with injuries last year. Like it's just, I don't know that he's ever going to reach the heights that I thought he might at one point in his career. So yeah, he'll probably be in some waterfall bids for me as well in leagues where he's still available. But I think this is more 15-team fodder than anything else. Moving on to a guy that we've already talked about, I think, on this FAAB episode, but I think we need to revisit because Kyle Stowers is just continuing to hit. Dude has been unreal so far this season. I don't know how much I buy it from an underlying skills perspective, but he's playing every day in Miami. That's not going to change, I don't think, anytime soon. Eric, where are you at on Kyle Stowers?
I think last night's game-winning grand slam was maybe the worst thing to happen to his FAAB situation this weekend, because he's going to go for too much money. And that's fine. I was happy to, put in some bids for Stowers. 20% barrel rate, 91.3 mile an hour average exit velocity. Those things are very real. We know he has power. That was always something that was, he had coming up in the Orioles organization. He also has an 18% swinging strike rate and a 67% contact rate overall in a pitcher's park. And also he has a career low. I mean, his career isn't really long, but 31% fly ball rate. So him spraying balls all over the field, I do think is helping his batting average, right? Spraying balls all over the field, not focused just on lifting. So maybe he's a 250 hitter rather than the guy who showed up in Miami at the end of last year and I think was like barely over 200. So is he a 250 hitter with like 20 homer power in that park with that really low fly ball rate? Like, oh, okay, that's fine in a bad lineup. I'm just not paying for the 320 hitter who hit like 4 home runs this week and drove in 10 runs and is like, post type breakout and all of that. I'm happy to have him, but I'm not going to break the bank. Jason,
you have a graph.
I do. Look at all of this. Holy crap. Look at all this right up here. This is, if I just took this and said, who is this player? Kyle Stowers may have been like the 150th guy you guessed. So for those just listening, it's like, if you look at all of the quality of contact things, all of them, they're all 25th percentile, the top 25th percentile, every one of them. And then rolling down, his rolling graph is just hilarious. It looks like a roller coaster or one of my all trails hikes. It's just all of a sudden, boom, straight up. So it's funny to see this back when it's Baltimore days, we called him Stowers Power. We wanted this to happen. It never did. And in Miami started acquiring all these different types and like hoping one of them sticks. And I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, like De Los Santos, and like, let me just grab a bunch of power bats that haven't played something and let's see what happens. And he's making this contact. But one of the things that impressed me, even with the walk-off grand slam last night, the other home run, is all of his home runs have been to center and left. And it doesn't surprise you from a guy with the Stanford swing where they're taught the inside out in that whole situation, but he's not selling out trying to pull for this power. He's doing it to the bigger parts of the ballpark and hitting the ball to all fields. And he should have the opportunity just to keep rolling with this. I agree with Eric, like the worst thing possible. I was looking back and Stowers was in some of my waterfall bids last week. Didn't even get to him.
Yeah,
now
me
it's
too.
going to be like, oh, now it's going to be all over the place, but he was in my waterfall bids. And I checked and he is a free agent in 2 of my leagues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Stowers is one of these guys where I don't believe at all this is going to continue. Like but you have to ride the hot streak. Like you just have to. Like he's crushing the ball when he makes contact. The problem is, I talk often about, like, when I talk about zone contact, is like 80% is that threshold of like you get too far below that, and I really do wonder if you are a major leaguer unless you have some sort of skill that can kind of transcend that. He's at 74%, and I don't think that is going to hold, or these numbers are going to hold with his zone contact at 74%. I think eventually pitchers are going to start to approach him differently, start going outside the zone. They're filling up the zone way too much against him. They're like a 51% zone rate. Pitchers are going to adjust, and I don't know if Stowers is going to be able to readjust when that happens because he's so aggressive.
I mean, that 412 BABIP's not going to hold up.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not.
But in all seriousness, though, you look at the rest of season projections: 16 home runs, 50 RBIs, 240 on the average, about a 240 average with 16 homers, 50 runs, 50 RBIs.
You'll take that's fine.
Exactly.
And I think that's the thing. Like, I think you should be picking up Kyle Stowers if you haven't already. Just don't expect him to be doing this rest of the way. He's gonna play. Like he's gonna. I mean, it's a Miami. Like, they do not care. This is what we were talking about, or what I was talking about with like the A's. Like the A's aren't the team that maybe will play guys every day if they're struggling, because they're actually, you know, somewhat competing right now. Miami's not. Miami will just let these guys play. So I do think that he can be an accumulator in the power department rest of the way. The problem is, I think the rest of the numbers are going to come crashing back down to earth at some point, and you'll just have to be able to handle that when it happens. But ride the hot streak. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to Drew Waters, and then we'll hit some pitchers real quick before we get out of here. Drew Waters is playing fairly regularly in Kansas City. Any interest there, Jason?
All right, so everybody's got one of those players that you watch and you love and you want more. Drew Waters is that guy for me. I love his swing. I love everything about him. But I'm going to read you a number here. So 5 home runs, 8 stolen bases, and a triple slash of 207, 281, and 287. Do you guys know who I'm talking about?
I don't.
The entirety of the Kansas City outfield this year. That's it. That is how god-awful that entire situation has been. That is their overall production for the season. Everybody who's outfield eligible, they have done absolutely nothing. So the opportunity is there, but you know, he has contributed to some of that. The good news is like he's got 5 of the 31 RBIs. He has 1 of the 5 home runs and 1 of the 8 stolen bases. That situation is god-awful horrendous. I don't know why they don't go trade for Luis Robert Jr. I'm going to keep mentioning him, but Kansas City's outfield situation is horrendous. Drew Waters, if he can produce, should be out there playing every day. Again, he's one of the players that when I watch him play, I want him on my team, but this was also MJ Melendez hitting, and that hasn't worked out as well either. I just have this affinity for Royals, I guess. I don't know. But yes, I want to see him do well, and the opportunity is absolutely there because the Kansas City outfield situation has been horrendous this year.
Yeah, I think this is time to invoke some mean girls and tell you to stop trying to make fetch happen.
Yes,
I mean, I've loved Drew Waters for a long time too, but like these underlying numbers are gross. Like they're
you don't like his 20% swinging strike rate?
Yeah, no, it's not even just a 20% swing strike rate, but that is a really big red flag.
But watch that swing. It is so pretty. I look at it, I'm like, why can't you do better? Because it is a really, really good swing.
Because he's swinging outside the zone 40% of the time right now. In like all he's doing is really just going up there and like, I'm gonna swing. I don't care about walks. I'm gonna swing. I'm just swinging everything, and it's working. But again, this is very similar to Stowers in the fact like pitchers are going to adjust to this and start throwing it outside the zone with how much he's chasing, and then his batting average will crater. The power speed combination of Waters was always enticing. It's what made him a top prospect, but I don't think this is going to be much of anything. What about you, Eric?
No, I'm with you. I'm not. I might throw a $1 bid in the kind of like quote unquote waterfall if I really needed something, but yeah, I'm not fully in on that.
You can ride the hot streak for a little bit, and because it's Kansas City and their outfield's terrible, he's probably going to play for a while. But I do expect this to come crashing back to earth. So be ready to jump off when that hot streak slows down. Let's talk about some pitchers real quick. Let's start with Tony Gonsolin, who's coming back from the IL and facing Miami. So you know the bids are going to be big.
He did that already.
He already did face Miami.
I think he
did face Miami this week.
Is he not facing him again? Give me a second.
Is he?
Dun, 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 looks up. Dodgers. Yeah, he's at Miami on Tuesday. So he's getting another start against Miami.
Yep, let's do it.
And then he'll line up for a home start versus the Athletics the following week. Eric, are you interested in Tony Gonsolin?
I'm interested for sure. I think you've got a pitcher who has produced solid ratios on a really good team in the past. I like that he was able to go 6 innings against Miami. Again, some of that was pitch efficiency and the fact that it was the Marlins. But he's going to go 5 or 6 innings for the Dodgers. I don't think the ratios are going to be are going to blow up, and so that's useful. I don't expect 9 strikeouts against a team that's not the Miami Marlins. He has never been a huge swing and miss guy, and so no, I'm not paying for the 2.30 ERA year of Tony Gonsolin back like 2 years ago, but I will put in bids on a solid ratio, low strikeout arm on a good team and see if I can maybe sneak him through a couple places.
What about you, Jason?
It's funny because my brother-in-law called me the other day, and they wanted to pick up Tony Gonsolin in advance, and they were trying to decide like, hey, who do I drop? And we went through a couple of pitchers. I won't embarrass him by saying which two pitchers, because we'll be like, oh my god, this is such an easy decision. But we used it as an education experience for me to walk him through some things, right? But yeah, Jeff Zimmerman had a nice note in his FAAB column this week. Yeah, Tony Gonsolin got the Marlins, but Tony Gonsolin's fastball, his first outing, wasn't great. And it was back where it was in 2023 when the outcomes weren't great either. So he was 92.6 in his first outing with a fastball. And that's kind of a red flag, as Jeff would have said. So, but that said, the matchup, you take it. You see what's going to happen. I'd be a little more hesitant if that athletic start was in Sacramento. So a 2-start week with the Marlins and Oakland and it
won't be a 2-start week. It'll be the Athletics the following.
Well, still
they're running the 6-man rotation, so no.
All right, so it's still not in Sacramento. It's at LA. So yeah. I'm gonna ride that, but keep an eye on it. I'm not like set it and forget it with him. With Gonsolin, but I did grab him last week in anticipation of the matchups coming up. So I already have him in 2 leagues.
Yeah, this is a guy you bid on for the short-term streaminess of it. You're not necessarily expecting that Gonsolin's going to be an everyday or an every week kind of rotation option for you, but you get this Marlins team again, who he just absolutely dominated. And then you can make a decision on Oakland in Los Angeles the week after. I like getting cheap pieces of the best team in baseball, and that's what you're getting with a guy like Tony Gonsolin. And if any team can help him kind of get back to where he was prior to the injuries, it is the Dodgers. Am I expecting them to? Not necessarily, but I think this is a short-term stream that you can kind of play it by week to week and then make a decision. And if things start looking better, you get to hold on to them for a cheap price. So don't go overboard. You're going to be some NFBC bids in the triple digits on Tony Gonsolin this week. You should not do that. I think that is a mistake.
Aren't these folks running out of money at some point? I mean, we keep talking about like, hey, triple did Chandler Simpson, Augustin Ramirez.
The problem is everybody gets the $1,000. So like the people who weren't willing to spend $900 on Nick Kurtz still have their money to go spend this week on a guy like Tony Gonsolin or Coby Mayo. All right, let's move over to a guy that I'm very interested to hear Eric's take on. And that is a guy who's, I'm probably going to butcher his last name, but Ben Casparius of the Cubs, who's come up and looked pretty good. Any interest in him there, Eric?
Dodgers, Ben Casparius.
Oh, is it Dodgers? I thought it was.
Yeah,
it would be the Dodgers.
Yes, Ben Casparius, long reliever for the Dodgers. Well, was a starting pitcher in the minors.
Yeah,
they've been using him as a long reliever, but there are talks of stretching him out into the starting rotation, given all the injuries to the starting rotation. I actually did write about him in my Wednesday starting pitcher news article. So I covered him. First of all, this is a guy in AAA, between AA and AAA last year, a 3.35 ERA with a 28% strikeout rate in the minors. So like solid enough prospect in the minors. Changed his arm angle, raised the arm angle this year. That allowed him to add vertical movement on the fastball. It also changed his slider and his cutter movement. So that's part of why we're seeing a little bit of this this kind of like quote unquote breakout right now. It's really great that, he added vert on the fastball, made the fastball flatter so it could succeed up in the zone more, to pitch for a Dodgers team that doesn't like throwing fastballs up in the zone that often, which I'm just going to bang my head into a wall about over and over and over again. He's leaned into the cutter a lot more this year. He uses it to lefties a lot, but he'll mix it in with righties because he has a four-seamer and a slider. So the cutter is kind of that go-between pitch. The cutter has more horizontal movement, and he's throwing it inside to lefties a lot and has been using it in 2-strike counts a lot, and that's really helped him against lefties this year. He doesn't throw his slider a lot to lefties. The curve is kind of like so he really needs that cutter to lefties. I see the pitch models really like him. I like him as a multi-inning reliever. I think I have some questions about if they stretch him out, because right now he has nothing that is down and in to righties. He doesn't throw his four-seam fastball inside to righties. So he really has nothing that he can use inside to righties. Now, that may change when he is a starter, because obviously what you do in a 2 or 3 innings stint is very different than what you would do if you need to get 5 or 6 innings. But I just am kind of like, his swinging strike rate is 5% better against lefties than righties this year. So I see a 4-seam fastball slider for righties. Currently see lots of swinging strikes for righties. And so I have a little bit of worry of like what your overall upside is going to be if he gets stretched out. I'm not comping him to Graham Ashcraft, but remember, we saw Graham Ashcraft as a guy who had really good stuff plus numbers and had a pitch mix that really didn't work against righties because everything was away against righties. And so I would need to see a little bit of change for Ben Casparius before I think he's going to be a great starter, but I'm willing to put some solid, low kind of bids on him in case it works out, but I'm not convinced it's going to work out as a starter.
Jason, what about you?
And you had to say Graham Ashcraft, because then I was like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
that's my problem."
That,
like
that had me pumping the brakes a little bit too. Yeah,
because I've seen Casparius pitch a couple of times, and I like what I've seen. But that's been my thing with Ashcraft. A couple of times I've seen him, I'm like, this stuff could play out. What if?
Ashcraft, who's looked really good as a reliever this year too.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly. I was really high on him coming in relief. So it's like, what if? So, I could be. I don't disagree with anything Eric said, but it's just like I'm not gonna fall into it's the Dodgers. We got to do this. You could see the stuff play up, but at the same point, can it play up long enough for him to start? Maybe his path to success is that multi-inning relief type of role. So I would rather have in a vacuum. I'd rather have Gonsolin right now, but maybe they piggyback Casparius off Gonsolin.
And I think that is kind of the spot for him. He could be a guy who piggybacks off of Gonsolin, or if Sasaki can't go deep, or if they do like just a straight bullpen game because they're so thin in the rotation right now. You could see totally butchering his name. I think you can see him get some sneaky wins. He's already got 3 wins on the season and 3 holds, I think, in saves holds leagues. This is a guy that I really want on my team because you can get kind of some of those sneaky wins and then also get the holds when they're bringing him in kind of later in games. So I like the profile, and he may be better as a reliever, but I think he could be a really interesting starter, and the Dodgers are a team that seems to make everybody better. So I think I'm going to put some smaller bids on him in 15-team leagues and kind of see what happens.
I just want to say with the Graham Ashcraft thing, my point is just that I see a profile that might be more of a reverse splits thing.
Yeah.
And the stuff plus numbers may be higher than the production you get is where I'm getting the Graham Ashcraft thing. I would still be placing bids too, because again, what we saw from him in a long relief role doesn't mean that's how he's going to attack hitters in a starting role. And there's enough that interests me that make me think, okay, I will pick him up and I will see what this looks like. But he's not one of my primary targets because I do have some questions.
Okay. What about Lance McCullers? This is a throwback. I didn't think I was going to be talking about Lance McCullers on any podcast this year, but he's going to be coming back here after pretty much not pitching since 2012. I think he's actually going to start 2022.
No, I think 2012 is accurate.
Yeah, 2022.
That's what it feels like.
Sorry, 2022. He's, I believe, starting. Is he starting today? Yeah,
he starts today.
He starts today. So, any interest in McCullers, who feels like he has not been fantasy viable since 2012? There, Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, at least we get to watch today to see for sure. McCullers has been solid when he's healthy. The last time that he was back, there was like the renewed emphasis on the slider because he had been like this curveball only guy, and that like slider sweeper, whatever he was throwing back then, was like really interesting. I remember doing some videos on it back in 2012, and so like I do like Lance McCullers. I also like Are the Astros, do they need to baby him? Like, are they in a situation where they could just throw him as many innings as it will take, and then it is what it is? You know what I mean? Like, he's not a young pitcher they're saving for the future anymore. But early on, I do have some fear that like does he get piggybacked with Ryan Gusto now that Gusto's out of the rotation? Like, is McCullers going to go 4 innings and then Gusto can go 3 innings or whatever it is? I just don't really know what type of length you're going to get out of McCullers. So again, like, I'm happy to put some small bids in the off chance that that he can be a 5 and dive guy on a solid team who looks good. But I'm certainly going to be watching today to get more information on that.
Jason?
So, like, Craig Calcaterra on Blue Sky was like, how is Lance McCullers like only 31 years old? And I was like, because he first went on the injured list when it was a 21-day injured list, and they used to call it the disabled list. That's how long he's been out. So the 2012 thing is fully accurate because that's how long it feels. Good story. I'm glad he's made it back. I want absolutely no part of him. I just don't. If somebody's had that long of a layoff, if he comes back and throws 3 scoreless innings, maybe he should just retire, call it a win, and be like, you know what? I made it back. Good for me. I'm out. But no, I want no part of this. Yeah, because then what happens, Spencer Arrighetti with the thumb issue, he's on his way back here at some point this month. And then when Arrighetti comes back, what's the role too?
I think this is one of those situations too, where you go like, hey, good for him that he got paid, right? Like, he got that contract, and some people are like, well, he's selling himself short. And I think he's going to end up doing all right, getting an $85 million contract that runs through next season. I kind of tend to feel more like Jason. I'm glad he made it back. I don't think I want any part of this. I'm going to be watching today, so that way I can kind of see how he looks. But I have zero faith that he's going to throw 100+ innings in the majors this year. And so for that reason, like, I'm probably out. All right, let's go to Gunnar Hoglund of the A's, I believe, who's he's made his debut and looked really, really good in that first debut. Is this a guy that you'd throw some fab on this week, Eric?
Yeah, for sure. I was more intrigued than I thought I was going to be. I actually watched the whole start this morning, which I really like watching on MLB.tv. I really like watching pitcher starts the next day because I like saying, I'm going to focus on this pitcher. And I watch the half inning and I fast forward to the next half inning and I fast forward to the next half inning. And so 4-seam fastball for Gunnar Hoglund. That's 93-94, but he has really good extension and really good vertical movement on it. And so the fastball plays up a little bit. Sinker with a lot of arm side run to pair with that. And then a changeup that is 7 miles an hour slower than the sinker that he uses kind of off of the sinker as well. That changeup has a lot of drop to it. And I saw him using it against righties and lefties both. And so that was really interesting to me. Slider and cutter, I think that they may list it as like a slider and a curveball, but it looked like it was like a 91 mile an hour slider and then a slower version of a slider. So I'm kind of treating it like a cutter and a slider. The command of those pitches was like pretty inconsistent, and I didn't see a lot of swinging strikes on those. And that's what makes me question like the big time upside, because 4-seam sinker change is a solid 3-pitch mix. It's going to be really good against lefties, so I'm not worried about the split. But I want to see, and I wish another secondary had jumped to me. Now it's just one performance, and so maybe those pitches will look better in the next one. And I'm certainly going to put bids on him because I saw enough in that 3-pitch foundation that makes me intrigued. But I want to see a little bit. I'd love to see a little bit more that makes me think we're going to get some strikeout upside here.
What about you, Jason?
Yeah, I saw a couple of innings of it, and I liked what I saw. I don't know if he's a strike thrower, not a strikeout, not a strikeout generator, but he is a strike thrower. And I'm going to put some bids on him to see what I can do. I'm actually have the first in XFL. We have monthly FAAB. That's tonight. I have that first pick because I have the worst record because of all the injuries. I'm in a full rebuild. And so I'm tempted to take Hoglund today. Somebody's offering me Emil Morales, who is like probably 4 or 5 years away as a prospect for that. And I'm thinking about it. But at the same point, I got way too many prospects. I need to have somebody that can actually use right now as well. So I will probably take Hoglund 1-1 tonight in XFL because I just like what I saw, and he's going to be part of the Athletics' future, and just move forward from there. I like strike throwers.
Yeah, I think he's more of a pitcher than a thrower, right? Like, I don't think the stuff I don't think is going to jump off the page, but he does have good command and control. The problem is he pitches in Sacramento, which is going to make him really difficult to use, especially as things start to heat up here over the next month or two. I think this is going to be really, really difficult. And so, like 10s and 12s, I'm saying he's probably nothing more than a streamer at this point, just because I think the long term is going to be really ugly. And a 15, you're just dying for pitching right now. Like, it is really, really kind of sparse on the waiver wire. So I think he is a guy that I would kind of want to target in a 15-teamer because I think there is staying power with how good that command and control can be. I don't know if this stuff is going to play up enough to get the swinging strikes, but he could get some called strikes and be a guy who fools people because he does have really good command and control. I don't think the upside is massive, though. I think this is more of a guy that, like, at best, he could be like an SP4, which isn't going to be super, super enticing, but in those deeper leagues, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Hunter Dobbins. I don't know which one of you added Hunter Dobbins to the sheet, so I will let Eric lead it off then.
Yeah, so Dobbins is in the Red Sox rotation now with Walker Buehler sidelined, and Walker Buehler, we don't have any results of the MRIs right now, but it's shoulder inflammation. It's not just fatigue like the Corbin Burnes situation. So, you know, you have to wait for the inflammation to die down. You get the follow-up MRI. We don't know how long Walker Buehler is going to be out for. It doesn't seem like a season-ending type of thing, but could it be 6 weeks? Like, it's entirely possible. And Dobbins has looked pretty good for the Red Sox. If I watch again, another start I watched in full this morning, he had 2 outs in the 5th inning and had allowed only 1 run against the Twins the other day. That box score, I think, wound up being 5 2/3, 4 earned runs. And so he hung a slider to Cody Clemens, who hit it out of the park, and then an inherited runner scored. So the box score doesn't reflect how well he actually pitched. This is a guy who is a little bit of a success story for the Red Sox pitching development. He's added velocity on the 4-seam fastball. He's added vertical movement on the 4-seam fastball. He will sit around 94, but he was throwing some 97-mile-an-hour fastballs in some previous starts. He can run it up there a little bit. He had a splitter that he couldn't command, so they turned it into the good old-fashioned splinker. So that's now a pitch that is in his arsenal that he can command a little better. He had 1 slider. They split it up into 2 sliders. So he throws a hard slider and then it throws a sweeper. And the sweeper got some really good swings and misses. It made Byron Buxton look pretty terrible in the 1st inning yesterday. And so I see a pitcher now with like a 6-pitch mix who is on a good team and is going to be in the rotation for, I'm going to say, probably a month, with the potential for more, given that there are injury concerns in the Red Sox rotation beyond just Walker Buehler. He gets the Kansas City Royals this week, and that, is not a bad opponent. Jason talked about how bad the outfield has been. Pasquantino isn't looking like an incredibly impactful bat right now in terms of like the middle of the order. Salvi Perez is banged up a little bit. We don't really know. I mean, maybe he'll be in the lineup, but who knows? So like Dobbins is somebody where if everybody is chasing bigger bids on like Tony Gonsolin, not Ben Casparius, but Tony Gonsolin and Hoglund, because they could be in the rotation for a while, I'm happy to put in some sizable but not huge bids on like a month-long stint from Hunter Dobbins being a strong pitcher. And I would put a higher bid on him than I would on Ben Casparius.
What about you, Jason?
Yeah, it's, they've used him as the up-down guy, as the 27th man, I guess it is now, for some of the double headers. But if Buehler is going to be out, there's enough there to be intrigued in AL. I know he's in waterfalls for me in my AL leagues right now to see what's possible. I mean, Boston is playing better than expected and has the winning record. So it's a good position for Dobbins to be in.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting kind of short-term streamer pick that, like Eric said, could turn into more. He was one of Eric Longenhagen's kind of picks to click, a guy who he thought could be a top 100 guy in the overall prospect ranks of Fangraphs coming into 2026. He's obviously up maybe a little bit earlier than expected because of the issues in the Boston rotation. But I think I say this all the time. Like, I trust in Andrew Bailey. Like, Andrew Bailey as a pitching coach is like just a guy that I really, really trust to get the most out of guys. And Dobbins has good enough command and control and stuff to make this work. And like Eric said, this rotation is kind of built with straw right now. And so if Dobbins sticks in this rotation rest of the way, I'm not going to be surprised. It also gives me an opportunity to like bitch about a league where I tried to trade Walker Buehler away and they wouldn't, and they vetoed the trade because they said I wasn't getting enough back. And it just pissed me off because now I'm stuck with this fucking bum on my roster.
Wait, that's recent?
There's still
it was like vetoes in it?
It was like 2 years ago. It was a super deep
league.
league.
My home league has some vetoes in it. It's a cause of contention every year. I will say 30 minutes ago, Jen McCaffrey of The Athletic, who covers the Red Sox, Walker Buehler is dealing with minor bursitis. He said if this was late in the season, he'd push through, but he's trying to be smart. He thinks it'll be a minimum IL stint. Okay. To me, that doesn't change a whole lot. I mean, if he thinks it'll be a minimum stint, it's nothing structural. That still could be 3 weeks. And that kind of goes to the same thing you're saying with Dobbins. You're not adding him right now as if he was a long-term add. You're adding him for the short term. And does he maybe stick in a spot? I will say one of those injured starting pitchers, just check your waiver wire for Lucas Giolito. He looked really, really good in that first start. I think we wrote his obituary too early. I think Giolito is still a solid pitcher, and if he's available in your league, I'm adding him over any of the guys that we've mentioned right now fairly easily.
Giolito was my 29th round pick in almost every single league this year because while I don't love guys in their first season back from Tommy John, there was just no price really attached to it. And I've been holding on, and I'm really glad I did because I do worry a little bit about, and I did watch that start of his, and you could definitely see like that Tommy John returnee kind of command and control issues at times.
Sure.
But the stuff is still really, really good. And I hope he's one of those guys that's going to get better as the season goes on. There may be some early bumps though.
And remember, he's internal brace, just like Spencer Strider. So like, we're still figuring out information.
Yeah, we don't know what that means, right?
Yep.
All right, let's finish out with the Arizona bullpen. We've got Justin Martinez went on the IL with a shoulder issue, like Jason alluded to earlier. They have already lost AJ Puck for probably the rest of the season. So who is it? Is it Shelby Miller? Is it Kevin Ginkel? Jason, where are you at on the Arizona bullpen chaos?
Before the season, like Ginkel was somebody that I picked up I was doing an 11-team NL only draft for somebody, and I picked up Ginkel in the reserves for somebody that was looking for spec save because I sub-drafted for somebody because I like Ginkel's skills before he got hurt, and he's had the job previously. I also like Shelby Miller in that same context last year with the situation. So if you make me take, I'd rather have Ginkel right now because recency bias with him, but I liked him coming into the season. I know there were a couple of people that were mentioning him as a quiet guy, like, hey, people are paying the price on Martinez, they're paying the price on Puck. Don't forget about this guy over here sitting here too. So I would rather have Ginkel right now, and this could be something where he has the bit because this shoulder stuff with Martinez, again, the only way to make that feel better is to rest it. And so I don't see this being a minimum 10-day IL chance. Right now, I know Miller had the most recent save chance, but they have pitched equal amounts lately. So give me Ginkel.
This also could be a committee situation. Ryan Thompson got a save the day before Shelby Miller. So do you have a preference, or is this kind of like throw a dart on the cheapest guy there, Eric?
I prefer Miller, but I'm putting bids on both guys. I will just say I was at the Mets Diamondbacks game on Thursday when they put Justin Martinez on the IL. I happened to be in the room where Tori Lovelu spoke. I spoke to both Shelby Miller and Kevin Ginkel that day. There's an article up on NBC Sports where I talked about the Arizona bullpen usage and talked to both those guys about their roles. And so go ahead and check that out. I like what Shelby Miller said about the changes the Diamondbacks have made to his arsenal. and also the way he attacks hitters this year, different from when he was in Detroit. And so I believe in what Shelby Miller is doing. And then I see in the 2 games that Ginkel came back, he pitched in the 2 highest leverage spots. Now, the first one was in the 6th inning, but it was to face Pete Alonso and Mark Vientos with a runner on in a 1-run game. So it was very clearly like, hey, we need you to get the middle of the order out before we lose the lead. And Lovolo said he's going to throw Ginkel right into the fire with that. Now, the only downside is that he did that again on Thursday. And even though Ginkel got out of the inning and made it so that Shelby Miller could get the save, he allowed a homer to Juan Soto. He walked another guy. He allowed 2 hits. So he pitched in the 2 highest leverage spots, which would mean that he could be the high leverage guy and Miller could be the closer, but he was also shaky in the second one. So Shelby Miller had been far and away the highest leverage reliever in the Diamondbacks bullpen prior to that. So in the next game, do they use Shelby Miller to put out the fire and then save Ginkel for the closer role? That's why I'm putting bids on both, but I just like what Miller's doing as a reliever, and he would be my higher ranked reliever.
Yeah, I think Eric nailed it there. I think Miller is the guy that I would want more, but I think I'm going to put bids on both of those guys just in case and see if I get lucky with one of them. I picked up Shelby Miller when AJ Puck went down, and then I dropped it right before Justin Martinez went down on a team where I really need saves. So I'm feeling a little burnt right now, but I'm willing to go right back to the wire and pick up Shelby Miller.
I drafted Tommy Kahnle in like the 30th round of basically all of my leagues, and then after week 1, when they had signed Bo Brisky back, I dropped Kahnle, and then like 2 weeks later, I'm now sitting here like, oh my God, I need him back on all my teams.
Yeah, it has been a rough year for saves. The don't pay for saves crowd is screaming at us this year. So that's gonna wrap us up for this episode. Eric, remind everybody where you can reach on social media and plug what you got going on.
Yeah, I'm at Samsky NYC on Twitter. I will tweet out everything that I do. So, make sure just to follow me there. That's the best thing. But every Sunday, I do a waiver wire article. It comes out around 10:30, 11 a.m. on NBC Sports. So make sure you check that out. And then Monday on the Corner podcast with Nick Pollock, and Monday noon Eastern time, Rotoworld Fantasy Baseball Q&A with James Schiano. I will tweet that out, but it's also on the Rotoworld YouTube page. So go check that out.
And Jason.
Cool. Find me at Blue Sky. Jason Collette, Collect Calls, Column at Rotowire. This past week, I looked at year-over-year changes for hitters. And like, for example, Shea Langoliers has drastically reduced the strikeout rate this year, which is exciting. And this week, I'll be looking at pitchers, looking for guys like Mackenzie Gore. All of a sudden is like an absolute strikeout machine, has had one of the 10 best runs here of strikeouts to start a season. And we're like, kind of, where did that come from? Been nice run. So just looking at some of these year-over-year changes and what's driving those changes. So we'll look under the hood for that.
And you can find me on social media at Justin Mason FWFB. I'm on all of the platforms, though. I need to start using them a little bit more than I probably am. And then you can read all my work at Fangraphs and Fantasy Pros, where I'm writing 4 to 5 days a week on both of those, as well as the Friends of Fantasy Bettors podcast, which has been taking a little bit of a break at the start of the season, but we'll get rolling here again shortly. That will wrap us up for this episode. For Eric, Jason, myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
See you guys.